Hello everyone. Well, lately it's been my pleasure to review the absolutely spectacular Canon 85mm f1.2 USM2 L lens. It's a star performer in the Canon lineup for its amazing sharpness, but for around 1/5 of the price, and that is a big difference, you can get the also excellent 85mm f1.8 USM. Let's see how the two lenses compare. First off, there's clearly a big difference in size, and that shouldn't be surprising. The 85mm f1.2 L lens can let in twice as much light as the 1.8, with a maximum aperture that's double the size. So, as you can see, the front element is enormous in comparison. Double the amount of light means that the 1.2 lens is pretty fantastic for photography work indoors, at night, or in any other dark place. And that amount of light gathering can be pretty useful for video work too. Having a wider aperture also means having blurrier backgrounds. Here's an image taken at f1.8 and the same scene taken at f1.2. Both pictures look great, but you're getting a blurrier background with a 1.2 lens. And that's the kind of thing that drives portrait or wedding photographers crazy, as well as anyone else who wants to achieve creative shots where your subject seems to jump out at you. It's also pretty fantastic for video work, although as you can see in this footage, neither lenses are image stabilized. Let's look at the two lenses' build quality. As befits a very expensive Canon L lens, the 85mm f1.2 is built like a tank. Big, sturdy and tightly assembled, it handles like a dream. Its focus system is electronically coupled to the camera, so it will only work when your camera is turned on, but other than that, the focus ring is amazingly smooth and it has a very long travel to it, so precise focusing is very easy indeed. The cheaper f1.8 lens is also built nicely, although more modestly. It's made out of cheaper plastic and it's much smaller and lighter. This makes it far less impressive to look at, but also far more inconspicuous. It has full-time manual focusing as well, but the focus ring is not quite as smooth and loose as on the L lens, and the travel path is much shorter. The autofocus on both cameras is very silent and accurate. However, slightly unsurprisingly, the smaller f1.8 lens focuses much faster than the f1.2 with its heavy glass elements it has to move around. If you need speedy autofocus, then the f1.8 lens is much better here. Overall, the cheaper lens is actually built very nicely and certainly a lot more portable, but in terms of sheer build quality, the f1.2 L definitely wins out. Well, let's take a look at image quality. We'll start by checking out both lenses on a full-frame camera, in this case a 20-megapixel Canon 6D. Of course, only the L lens can reach f1.2, where it actually puts in a great performance with plenty of sharpness and surprisingly good corners. But this is a comparison video, so let's stop it down to f1.8, the widest common aperture between both lenses. In the center of the image, both lenses are very sharp, although the L lens carries a noticeable advantage and also shows more contrast. Let's look in the corners. At f1.8, the L lens is clearly sharper and brighter. If we stop down to f2.8, the L lens is still considerably sharper and brighter in the corners. At f4, both lenses are looking great, although the L lens still has a clear advantage. It's only when we stop all the way down to f5.6 that both lenses are perfectly sharp from the corners right back into the middle of the frame. So they're both great performers, but on a full frame camera, the f1.2 L actually carries quite a convincing advantage, particularly in those corners. Okay, so let's look at the picture quality on an APS-C camera, in this case my 18-megapixel Canon 6DD. Of course, only the L lens can reach f1.2. The picture quality in the middle of the frame is very sharp, but there's a hefty amount of purple fringing, which kind of spoils the show. It's the same story in the corners. It's actually a good performance apart from the purple fringing. Let's top the lens down to f1.8 so that the 1.8 lens can join in. In the middle of the image, both lenses are almost exactly the same, so let's look in the corners. The L lens has the very slightest advantage in terms of sharpness, but the difference is barely noticeable. both lenses struggle with chromatic aberration on contrasting edges. We see magenta in the windows of the 1.2 lens and purple on the 1.8. They're both equally sharper when you stop down to f2.8 and even down to f5.6. Both lenses are basically the same. So on an APS-C camera, surprisingly, there's basically no difference in picture quality. Let's look at distortion and vignetting. The more expensive L lens actually seems to have a little more barrel distortion, disappointingly. But with both lenses at f1.8, it has less vignetting or brighter corners. And even when both lenses are stopped down to f2.8, it still carries an advantage. Let's take a look at the difference in bokeh, or the quality of the background blur. Both these pictures were taken at f1.8. The bokeh is very nice on both lenses, although I'd say that the L is very slightly smoother, although only slightly. Just out of interest, let's open the L lens's aperture all the way down to f1.2. As you can see, the background really is much blurrier. One similarity is that both lenses struggle with longitudinal chromatic aberrations, as you can see by the unwelcome, colourful highlights in these pictures, both taken at f1.8. So what can we say overall? Both lenses really are fantastic performers. In terms of build quality, the L lens has that wonderful solid feel to it and the best focus ring, but the 1.8 lens is nice and small and has really fast autofocus. It swings and roundabouts, but overall I do prefer the build quality of the L lens. I love that smooth, loose focus ring and just the way it feels in your hand. On an APS-C camera, both lenses basically perform the same, but on a full-frame camera, the L lens has a real advantage over its smaller brother, with considerably sharper corners all round. The L lens also has slightly smoother quality bokeh, but the real advantage is that amazing f1.2 maximum aperture. It lets in so much light, yet still manages to be so sharp. The L lens is about 5 times the price of the f1.8. It's certainly not 5 times better, and most human beings should be happy with the f1.8 lens. But if you're a professional who needs to use 85mm a lot, or if you're shooting a special occasion and you're using a full-frame camera, then the f1.2 gives you a very real advantage indeed.